brushing mistakes that make hair look thinner and how to fix them. Have you ever looked down at your brush and thought, was that much hair there yesterday? You're not imagining it. And no, it's not just stress or the weather. After 60, our hair changes, sometimes slowly, sometimes seemingly overnight. It gets finer, more delicate. The scalp feels more sensitive. And what used to be a harmless daily brushing routine, it might now be causing more harm than good. Today, we're tackling something simple but surprisingly important: brushing. Because believe it or not, the way you brush your hair could be making it look thinner. Even the brush itself, or when you're brushing, can have a real effect on volume, breakage, and how your hair frames your face. This isn't about complicated routines or expensive tools. It's about tiny shifts, ones that protect the hair you have, support what's growing in, and help you feel more confident when you glance in the mirror. And if you've ever brushed your hair right after a shower, thinking it was the fresh thing to do, that might be the very first habit we need to look at. If that sounds familiar, hit like, subscribe to Elder Insights, and drop a 1 in the comments. Still brushing like you did in your 40s? Go ahead and type 0. No shame, just honesty. Let's start with one of the most common and most damaging brushing habits, the one that happens right after you towel off. Habit 1. Brushing wet hair with tight strokes. Let's start with one of the most tempting habits, brushing your hair right after a shower, when it's still wet and soft. It feels like the right time, doesn't it? Freshly washed, tangle-prone, you reach for the brush out of habit, hoping to smooth everything out before it dries into something unmanageable. But here's the issue: wet hair is at its weakest. After 60, our strands naturally become finer and less elastic. The scalp may also be drier or more sensitive, meaning it doesn't bounce back the way it used to. So those firm strokes, especially from root to end, can overstretch the hair, snap the cuticle, and lead to breakage without you even realizing it. And visually, that means less volume near the crown, a more visible part line, and those frustrating flyaways that make styling feel impossible. Instead of a full brush out on soaking wet hair, try this. Step 1. Pat, not rub your hair dry with a soft towel or t-shirt. Avoid twisting or squeezing. Step 2. Apply a light detangler or leave-in conditioner, especially if your hair tends to knot at the ends. Step 3. Use a wide-tooth comb, not a regular brush. Start from the ends and gently work upward in short strokes. This eases out knots without pulling on the scalp. Picture this: gentle, gliding movements that let the hair fall into place. No tugging, no tension. It may feel slower at first, but it saves you from long-term thinning and damage. As we age, the goal isn't speed, it's support. And the right start, right after a shower, sets the tone for healthier, fuller-looking hair all day long. Next up, a mistake that hides in plain sight: using the wrong brush altogether. Let's talk about what your brush is made of and what that means for your hair. Habit 2. Using the wrong brush for aging hair. Now that we've talked about brushing while wet, let's take a closer look at what you're brushing with. Because here's something most of us don't think about. Not all brushes are made for aging hair. And the one you've had for years, it might be working against you more than you realize. Many women over 60 are still using the same type of brush they used decades ago. Often a plastic paddle brush or a narrow styling brush with stiff, synthetic bristles. These were fine when hair was thicker, oilier, and more resilient. But after 60, those hard bristles can scratch the scalp, pull fragile strands, and create static and frizz. What does that lead to? More breakage around the crown, thinning near the temples, and a general flatness that makes the hair look dull and lifeless, especially at the roots. You might notice the brush feels like it's catching or pulling, even when your hair's not that tangled. So what should you use instead? Try switching to a boar bristle brush, or a brush that combines boar and nylon bristles. Boar bristles are naturally gentle, They glide through the hair while distributing your scalp's natural oils, which helps keep your hair soft and shiny without adding product. They also stimulate the scalp lightly without scratching it, perfect for more sensitive skin. Another good option? A cushioned brush with flexible, rounded pins. It offers give where you need it, reducing tugging and scalp irritation. Here's a simple visual. Instead of stiff bristles dragging and snapping at fine strands, picture soft, rounded bristles that glide and lift like fingers smoothing silk. The right brush won't just feel better, it will actually support the shape and health of your hair. Up next, a mistake that's more about how you brush than what you're using. Let's talk about where you start and why it makes such a difference. Habit 3. Brushing from the roots instead of the ends. Now that you've got the right brush in hand, let's talk about how you move it through your hair. Because this next habit is so automatic, you might not even notice you're doing it. You stand in front of the mirror, lift the brush, and without thinking, start right at the scalp and pull straight down. It's what most of us were taught. Brush from root to tip. One clean motion. Done and done. But after 60, that old routine can cause more harm than good. Here's why. Hair becomes more delicate with age. When you drag a brush from the top down, you're not just smoothing, you're pulling every tangle along the way into one long snag. And that pressure adds up, especially near the crown, where the hair is often finer and more exposed. The result? More shedding, more breakage, and less volume, right where you want lift the most. Instead, think of brushing as a gentle reset. Start at the ends, just the last few inches. Loosen up any knots with short, soft strokes. Then move up a little higher and repeat, slowly. By the time you reach the roots, the lower half is already smooth and you're no longer forcing your way through tangles. This method doesn't just protect your hair, it preserves your patience too. No more yanking. No more silent frustration as strands pull too tight near the scalp. Just smoother, safer brushing, and a little more peace in the process. And if you're worried it'll take longer, you might be surprised. What feels slower at first actually saves time because you're not stopping to wrestle with knots or pull loose hair from your brush every few strokes. Coming up, something we rarely think of as a problem: brushing too much or not enough. Let's find that sweet spot your hair is quietly asking for. Habit 4, brushing too often or not enough. Let's shift gears a bit, because sometimes the issue isn't how you brush, it's how often. You might find yourself brushing several times a day, trying to tame flyaways, boost volume, or just feel a little more put together. Or maybe it's the opposite. You avoid brushing unless it's absolutely necessary, because it feels like every stroke leaves more hair behind on the bristles. Both are completely understandable, and both, believe it or not, can work against your hair. Brushing too often, especially with firm strokes, can overstimulate the scalp, strip away natural oils, and cause friction along the strand. That constant pressure can wear down already delicate hair, leading to breakage or a fluffy texture that feels dry and hard to style. On the flip side, not brushing enough allows oils build up and shed strands to sit on the scalp. That can make your hair look limp, weigh it down at the roots, and even block healthy growth over time. So what's the balance? Once or twice a day is usually enough. In the morning, a light brushing helps redistribute natural oils from scalp to ends, like nature's own conditioner. In the evening, it can gently remove the day's residue, dust, product, or anything your hair's picked up along the way. Use this moment as a check-in, not a chore. How does your scalp feel? Are there tangles at the nape? Does your hair feel dry or a little too oily? Brushing is a chance to reconnect with your hair, not just manage it. And remember, you don't need to brush for the sake of brushing. A few thoughtful, slow passes with the right tool will always do more than constant overbrushing with the wrong one. Next, we'll look at something that often gets ignored completely, yet plays a major role in how full or flat your hair looks: your scalp, and how you care for it while you brush. Habit 5. Ignoring the scalp while brushing. So far, we've talked about how brushing affects your hair, but let's not forget what's underneath it all, literally, your scalp. It's easy to overlook. Most of us focus on tangles, ends, texture, and we forget that every strand we care about starts at the root. And roots? They need a healthy foundation. Over time, the scalp can become drier, tighter, or more sensitive, especially after 60. Hormonal changes, reduced oil production, even medications can all shift how your scalp behaves. If your brushing routine skips over that area gently or avoids it entirely out of habit, you may be missing a chance to support healthier, fuller-looking hair. Think of your scalp like a garden bed. If it's tense or neglected, the growth above it struggles. But when it's stimulated in a soft, deliberate way, it encourages circulation, supports natural oil flow, and creates a better environment for every hair that's growing in. So how do you do it? Use a soft brush with rounded tips, or even your fingertips, to lightly massage the scalp while brushing. You don't need pressure, just small, circular motions near the crown and temples, where hair tends to thin most. This isn't just about stimulation. It's about reconnecting with a part of yourself that often gets rushed past. A few seconds of this can improve blood flow, ease tightness, and remind your body, hey, I'm still here. Let's take care of this together. And here's the lovely part. A well-cared-for scalp makes hair look fuller even if nothing else changes, because healthy roots naturally lift. They support the hair above, and they help styles hold better, longer, and with less effort. Now that we've covered 5 quiet mistakes that add up over time, let's pull everything together. Your brushing habits matter, and changing them doesn't have to be hard. Brushing seems like such a small thing, one of those routines we've done 1,000 times without thinking. But as we've seen, how you brush matters just as much as how you style. After 60, your hair changes. It needs less force and more flow. It doesn't respond to old routines the way it used to. But that doesn't mean it's working against you. It just means it's asking for something different. Gentler tools, softer strokes, a little patience with tangles, and maybe most important of all, a little kindness toward yourself in the process. Because this isn't just about volume or breakage or which brush you use. It's about tuning in, relearning how to care for your hair, not because it's the same, but because it isn't. You don't need to fight your hair. You just need to listen to it a little differently. So maybe tonight, when you pick up your brush, you'll pause. Start at the ends. Take your time. Breathe. Because your hair isn't just something to manage, it's a part of you. And it deserves the same care you offer to everyone else. If this video helped you rethink even one little habit, let us know in the comments. Which part surprised you most? What might you try differently this week? And remember, gentle care isn't just better for your hair, it's better for you too. Subscribe to Elder Insights for more everyday wisdom, tailored to women embracing life after 60, with clarity, confidence, and grace.